A new semester has begun at Seoul University, and campus life resumes its usual rhythm: packed classes, piling assignments, and diverse social interactions. In one of the lecture halls of the business management department, a girl named Park Yin sits with her group of friends, chuckling softly as they chat casually before the professor arrives. In another corner of the room, Jungkook sits among his male friends, his naturally reserved demeanor making him more of a listener, occasionally offering small smiles in response to their conversations. Despite sharing the same class for the past 2 years, Yin and Jungkook have never had any significant interactions. They are merely two individuals who happen to attend the same lectures, familiar with each other's names and faces but nothing more. Amidst the lively chatter of their respective groups, one person watches Jungkook attentively. Nara, a girl who has been friends with him since high school, sits not far from his group. Her eyes follow his every movement, her subtle smile laced with meaning. Nara and Jungkook have been neighbors since high school. Their families are close, given that their houses are right next to each other. To Jungkook, Nara is just a close friend. But to Nara, Jungkook is someone she has secretly loved for years. However, she never dared to confess, fearing it would ruin the bond they have shared for so long. Jungkook, have you finished the economics report assignment? Nara suddenly asks, pulling Jungkook's attention away from his conversation. Not yet. I'll probably work on it tonight, Jungkook replies casually. In that case, how about we do it together? I can help you with the statistics part. I know you don't like that section, Nara offers with a sweet smile. Jungkook glances at her briefly before shrugging. Up to you. I'll probably do it at the cafe near campus after class. If you want to come, go ahead. Nara's eyes light up. Of course, I'll go with you after class. From another part of the room, Yin happens to witness their interaction and merely raises an eyebrow. She may not know Jungkook well, but she is well aware of how Nara always tries to stay close to him. Her friends have noticed it too. Everyone knows that because Jungkook is a quiet and reserved guy, whose circle consists only of male friends, Nara stands out whenever she is around him. Not long after, Professor Liu entered the classroom. Good morning. I have an announcement. For your end of semester project, you will all be paired randomly. Each group will consist of 2 people, so make sure to collaborate well. After Professor Liu finished reading out the group assignments, the students began preparing to discuss the project with their assigned partners. Yin, who was usually grouped with her close friends, now had to work with just one person, and that person was Jungkook. They had never really talked beyond the occasional interaction during class discussions. Yin was slightly surprised, but she had no choice. As the class ended, Yin walked toward Jungkook, who was packing his books into his bag. Hey, looks like we're partners for this project, she said with a friendly smile. Jungkook glanced at her briefly and gave a small nod. Yeah, he replied simply. How about we discuss the project in the library this afternoon? Yin suggested. Jungkook seemed to consider it for a moment before nodding again. Okay. Yin sat quietly at one of the long tables, pulling out her notebook and laptop. Across from her, Jungkook had just pulled out a chair and sat down without a word, placing his bag on the table with calm movements. At first, the atmosphere between them felt awkward. They had never really had a long conversation, let alone been alone together like this. The only reason they were here now was the group project that required them to work together. Yin glanced at Jungkook briefly, wondering how to start the conversation. But Jungkook remained focused on his laptop, typing something without looking up. With a quiet sigh, Yin opened her notebook. So, where should we start? Jungkook lifted his head, meeting Yin's gaze for a moment before looking back at his screen. The first section. I've already read the material. We should divide the tasks first. Oh, okay. Yin nodded. I can handle the introduction and the initial analysis. Which part do you want to take? Jungkook thought for a moment. I'll take the methodology and discussion section. Great. Then we can combine everything later. Yin jotted down the task division. But I think we still need to discuss regularly so our analysis stays aligned. Jungkook gave a small nod before returning to his laptop, letting the silence settle between them again. Yin felt a little uneasy. She was used to working in livelier groups, surrounded by chatty friends, but Jungkook was different, quiet, composed, and somewhat distant. Minutes passed. The only sounds were their fingers tapping against their keyboards. Yin stole a glance at Jungkook. His expression was serious, eyebrows slightly furrowed, fingers moving swiftly. He looked so focused. So, Yin attempted to break the ice. You're the type who prefers working alone, huh? Jungkook paused his typing, turning slightly toward her. I mean, we've been in the same class for a while, but you rarely talk to anyone except your close friends. Yin gave a small smile. I was just curious. Jungkook stared at her for a few seconds before replying. I don't really like crowds, but that doesn't mean I dislike group work. Yin raised an eyebrow. Oh, I thought you'd be more comfortable working alone. Jungkook shrugged. Depends on who the partner is. Yin blinked before chuckling. I guess I'm lucky then. I thought you'd suggest we work separately at home and just combine everything later. Jungkook glanced at her briefly before returning to his laptop, but this time, the corner of his lips lifted slightly, so subtle, yet noticeable. Gradually, the atmosphere softened. Their conversation flowed more smoothly as they delved into their project. Yin realized that Jungkook actually had great ideas. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his thoughts were sharp and logical. I think we can develop this section further, Jungkook said, pointing at his screen. If we compare it with another case study, our analysis will be stronger. Yin leaned in, reading his notes. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of that. You're right. If we add a comparison, the analysis will be deeper. Jungkook nodded. I can find the references. Okay, I'll look for supporting data. Yin smiled, starting to feel more comfortable working with him. As time passed, their interactions became more natural. Jungkook, who rarely smiled, began showing another side of himself. When Yin accidentally dropped her pen and almost fell while picking it up, Jungkook held back a laugh. Are you always this clumsy? He asked with a teasing tone. Yin looked up, her cheeks flushing. Hey, that was an accident. Jungkook finally let out a small chuckle, the first time Yin had ever heard him laugh so freely. She pouted, but deep down, she felt strangely happy seeing him more expressive. When Yin shared a funny incident from the cafeteria earlier that day, Jungkook initially just listened, but when she mimicked her friend's off-key singing, he couldn't hold back his laughter. Seriously? He sang like that? Jungkook chuckled. Yes, and it happened when we were all eating seriously. Can you imagine how ruined the atmosphere was? Yin laughed along. Jungkook shook his head, amusement still lingering in his expression. I never expected you to be this loud. Yin playfully nudged his shoulder. Hey, it's not being loud. You're just too quiet. Jungkook simply smiled, but this time, it lasted longer. Minutes turned into hours as they continued working. Without realizing it, 3 hours had passed. And as they sat there, side by side, Yin started to see Jungkook differently. He wasn't just the quiet and cold guy she always thought he was. There was another side to him, one she was just beginning to uncover. And without them realizing it, the invisible wall between them was slowly starting to break down. One afternoon, after class ended, Jungkook approached Yin. Have you eaten? He asked bluntly. Yin was slightly surprised by the question. Not yet. Why? Let's go to the cafeteria, Jungkook said in a calm tone. At first, Yin found it strange, but rejecting Jungkook's invitation felt impolite, especially since they were still working on a group project together. Besides, having a meal with Jungkook didn't seem like a bad idea. For the first time ever, they sat together in the cafeteria. Usually, Jungkook ate with his group of male friends, while Yin sat with her own circle. But today, they sat across from each other, having lunch while engaging in light conversation. Do you like the food here? Yin asked, glancing at the meal on Jungkook's tray. Jungkook shook his head slightly. Not really, but I'm not picky either. Yin chuckled. So you just eat whatever is available? More like, I don't like overthinking what to eat. As long as it's edible and won't make me sick, it's fine. Yin laughed softly. You really have simple tastes, huh? Just like my dad. He eats whatever my mom cooks and never complains. Jungkook didn't respond, but the corner of his lips lifted slightly. Yin noticed that he was starting to react with more relaxed expressions, instead of just short, indifferent answers that ended the conversation quickly. After that first meal together, it became a habit. They didn't always sit alone. Sometimes Yin's friends or Jungkook's friends joined them. But Yin realized that their time together was becoming more frequent. Even when the cafeteria was full and there were no available seats, Yin would naturally look for Jungkook's table and sit with him without hesitation. Their interactions weren't just limited to that. One day, their class ended later than usual, and it was raining outside. Yin hurriedly packed her things, then dashed toward the campus exit. As she ran, she heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Jungkook approaching. Are you going home alone? He asked, once again without any small talk. Yin nodded. Yeah, I'm taking the bus. Jungkook glanced at his watch. It's already late, and it's raining. I'll drive you home. Yin was taken aback. Ah, no need. I can manage. I just have to reach the bus stop. Jungkook didn't reply immediately. Instead, he took off his jacket and placed it over both their heads to shield them from the rain. Come on, hold this so at least our heads won't get wet. Yin hesitated, looking at him uncertainly. I really don't want to trouble you. Jungkook sighed and said in his usual flat tone, it's fine, I'm heading in the same direction anyway. Still unsure, Yin eventually followed Jungkook's lead. He held one side of his jacket, while Yin held the other. Together, they quickly walked toward the parking lot. Unbeknownst to them, someone was watching from a distance. Nara stood in the corner of the campus corridor, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Her eyes followed their every move. What is going on? She thought, irritated. Since when did they become this close? Jungkook had never shown interest in any girl before. He always kept his distance, rejecting every girl who tried to get close to him. But now, he seemed different. Even though he wasn't saying much, his actions toward Yin were enough to make Nara realize the change. She bit her lip, jealousy growing inside her. No way. Jungkook couldn't possibly like another girl besides me. I won't let this happen. Nara had known Jungkook since high school and had always been the only girl close to him. No other girl had ever managed to get near him. But now, Yin was slowly stepping into a space that had only ever belonged to her. Why her? Nara thought bitterly. Why not me? I've always been the one by his side. During the ride, unlike usual, they didn't talk much. But the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Yin gazed out the window, her heart beating slightly faster. There was something different about Jungkook's behavior toward her, and she couldn't ignore the feeling. Jungkook, on the other hand, felt the same. Even though they weren't talking much, he still felt at ease with Yin. Normally, she was the one who talked more, but whether she was chatty or quiet like now, Jungkook still found her presence comforting, something he had never felt with any other girl before. That afternoon, the campus cafeteria was bustling with activity. The clinking of spoons and forks blended with the chatter of students enjoying their lunch. In one corner of the cafeteria, Yin and Jungkook sat across from each other. Their frequent moments together no longer felt as awkward as they once did. Why are you eating so little? Yin asked, raising an eyebrow as she glanced at Jungkook's plate. Jungkook shrugged, not too hungry. Besides, Minju gave me some bread earlier. Yin was about to respond when, suddenly, someone pulled out a chair beside Jungkook and sat down casually. It was Nara. Jungkook, I've been looking for you, Nara said in an overly cheerful tone. She glanced briefly at Yin before turning her attention back to Jungkook. Why didn't you tell me you were eating in the cafeteria? I'm hungry too. Jungkook let out a quiet sigh. I don't have to tell you everywhere I go, Nara. But I could have joined you, Nara replied quickly. She then waved at a server and ordered her food without hesitation. Turning back to Yin, she smiled, though the warmth in her expression didn't quite reach her eyes. You seem to be eating with Jungkook a lot these days, huh? Yin held her breath for a moment, sensing something different in Nara's gaze. Still, she maintained a polite smile. We've been working on a project together, so it's normal for us to meet often. Oh, Nara nodded slowly, still smiling. But doesn't Jungkook usually eat with his guy friends? I rarely see him sitting with a girl. Jungkook remained silent, uninterested in answering. He simply continued eating as if he didn't hear her. But Yin could feel the shift in the atmosphere. Since Nara arrived, the mood at the table had become noticeably tense. It didn't stop there. After lunch, as usual, Jungkook stood up, grabbed his bag, and prepared to leave the cafeteria. Yin also got up, ready to return to class. However, before Jungkook could take a step, Nara quickly grabbed his arm. Jungkook, can I go home with you later? I stayed up late last night, and I'm afraid I'll fall asleep on the bus, she said in a sweet, almost pleading tone. Jungkook paused for a moment, his eyes briefly flickering toward Yin, who simply lowered her gaze without any expression. To be honest, lately, he had started feeling uncomfortable with how Nara always seemed to appear out of nowhere in his life, as if she didn't want to give him any space. I was planning to drop Yin off first, Jungkook finally said. Nara raised an eyebrow. Oh, then we can go home together. That's fine, right, Jungkook? Jungkook sighed internally. Clearly, Nara wasn't getting the hint. He had actually wanted to go home alone with Yin, but rejecting Nara outright felt strange, considering that, at this moment, both Nara and Yin were still just his friends. In the end, he exhaled and gave in. Alright. As their class ended, the three of them walked toward the parking lot. Jungkook opened the door to his car, ready to take the driver's seat. However, before Yin could approach the car, Nara quickly stepped forward and sat in the front passenger seat. I'll sit in the front, she said casually while fastening her seatbelt. Since we're dropping Yin off first, I won't have to switch seats from the back to the front later. Yin gave a small nod without commenting. To her, it wasn't a big deal. She just wanted to get home quickly. Whether she sat in the front or the back didn't matter. Jungkook glanced briefly at Nara, then at Yin through the rearview mirror. For some reason, an uncomfortable feeling settled in his chest, but he chose to stay silent and started the engine. Throughout the drive, the atmosphere inside the car felt strange. Nara comfortably kept the conversation going, talking endlessly about various topics, mostly about herself and her high school memories with Jungkook. "I'm really happy that we're still close, Jungkook. You're the only friend I have who hasn't changed." Jungkook let out a small sigh before replying, "People always change, Nara. I have too." There was a sharp edge to his tone, one that perhaps only Yin noticed. However, Nara seemed oblivious to the underlying warning in his words, maintaining her cheerful smile as if she hadn't heard it at all. From the back seat, Yin remained silent, staring out the window while absent-mindedly playing with the strap of her bag. She wasn't sure how to respond to Nara's presence, which kept intruding on her time with Jungkook. And what bothered her the most was the fact that Jungkook didn't seem to outright reject Nara's company. But Yin was well aware that she and Jungkook were just friends, just like Nara. When they finally arrived in front of Yin's house, Jungkook glanced back. "Yin, we're here." Yin snapped out of her thoughts and quickly prepared to get out. "Oh, Jungkook, thanks for dropping me off," she said softly. Jungkook nodded with a small smile. "Take care." Once again, Nara observed Jungkook's every move. Honestly, she didn't like how easily he smiled at Yin. Moments later, Yin opened the door and stepped out. A few seconds later, Jungkook started the car again. Nara continued trying to spark conversations, but he only responded briefly. For the first time, Jungkook started feeling uncomfortable around Nara. He was beginning to realize she was interfering in his life far too often. The next day, Yin was walking alone through the campus hallway. Her steps were unhurried, her mind still lingering on the assignment she had just finished in the library with Jungkook. But suddenly, a cold voice called her name. "Yin." She turned around and found Nara standing there, her expression unreadable. Arms crossed, her sharp gaze bore into Yin. The atmosphere grew tense in an instant. "What is it?" Yin asked, trying to remain calm despite the feeling that this conversation wouldn't be pleasant. Nara stepped closer until only a few steps separated them. "You need to stay away from Jungkook." Yin raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised by the commanding tone. "Why should I?" Nara scoffed, then smirked. "You know exactly why. I've known him much longer. We've been friends since high school. I've always been there for him, by his side all this time, not you. Do you think just because he's been spending time with you lately, you can take my place so easily?" Yin remained silent for a moment, meeting Nara's intense gaze with calmness. "Jungkook and I are just friends, Nara, just like you and him." At that moment, Yin finally saw Nara's true face. Nara let out a small laugh, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't play dumb, Yin. I can see it clearly. He's starting to notice you, starting to care about you. He's never acted like that with any other girl before. I've known him longer. I know how he is. And if this keeps going, you'll end up being with him for real. I won't let that happen." Yin sighed. "So what do you want from me?" Nara's eyes burned with barely restrained anger. "I want you to stay away from him. Stop meeting him. Stop talking to him, and stop giving him the attention. You should know your place, Yin. Jungkook and I have been friends for years. He has always cared about me, and that won't change just because you're trying to replace me." Yin gave a small, knowing smile. "I do like Jungkook, and I won't deny that. But whether I stay by his side or not, that's not up to you. It depends on Jungkook. How I treat him depends on him, not on you." Nara clenched her fists at her sides. "Do you think he can forget about me just like that? Do you think if you to start dating, I won't still be in his life? You're so wrong, Yin. I will always be there. Our parents are friends. We're neighbors. I've been part of his life long before you came along. You can't change that." Yin looked at her unfazed. "Then we'll see what happens. I'm not afraid of you, Nara. If Jungkook truly loves me, then nothing can change that, not even you." Nara's face turned red with barely suppressed fury. She never expected Yin to stand her ground so firmly against her threats. But beneath her anger, a creeping fear settled in her chest, the fear that, for the first time, she might actually lose Jungkook. Yin turned and walked away without another word, leaving Nara standing frozen, her teeth clenched. "We'll see who wins in the end," Nara muttered, her eyes burning with determination. A few days later, The evening sky was painted in shades of golden orange as the sun slowly descended on the western horizon. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, playing with Yin's hair as she stood beneath a large tree in the campus park. She was still curious as to why Jungkook had suddenly asked to meet her after class. Jungkook approached with calm steps, his hands tucked into his pockets, his expression as unreadable as ever. But this time, there was something different in his gaze, something firm, as if he had made up his mind about something important. They stood facing each other in silence for a moment, the only sound between them being the rustling of leaves in the wind. Yin looked at Jungkook with slight confusion, waiting for him to speak. Jungkook took a deep breath before finally saying, "Yin, I like you." Yin froze, her heart pounded rapidly. The words she had secretly hoped to hear had finally left his lips. "Jungkook." Jungkook held her gaze, his eyes unwavering, as if making sure she understood the depth of his sincerity. "I don't know when these feelings started, but the more time we spend together, the more certain I become. I want us to be more than just friends." Yin bit her lip, hesitant to respond immediately. Something had been bothering her for a while, something she needed to say before things went any further. "Before I give you my answer, there's something you need to know, Jungkook." Jungkook frowned slightly. "What is it?" Yin lowered her gaze, her fingers tightly intertwined. "Nara came to me and told me to stay away from you." Jungkook fell silent, his expression darkening. His eyes narrowed, and his lips pressed into a thin line. "What do you mean?" "She said she has more right to be with you because she's been close to you for so long. She said that no matter who you end up with, you'll always care about her, that she'll always be in your life," Yin explained, her voice steady but firm. "So, I want to know, Jungkook, what will you do about this? To be honest, I don't want to be a hypocrite or pretend otherwise. If we start dating, I will definitely expect you to prioritize me over her. That's a given, because I am your girlfriend, not her. So, are you ready for that? I don't want to be with a man who places me second while putting his female best friend first. Before we begin anything, I need to know your stance. Don't make me regret accepting you as my boyfriend." Jungkook clenched his fists at his sides. Yin could see his jaw tighten, a clear sign that he was holding back his emotions. "That's nonsense. Don't believe anything she says. I just want you to know. I don't want there to be any lies or anything I keep from you, and I expect the same from you. I don't want you secretly prioritizing her over me behind my back," Yin said. Jungkook took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Yin, listen to me carefully." Yin lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes. "Nara and I have been friends for a long time. I won't deny that, but I have never seen her as anything more than a friend. And I don't like that she's using our friendship to manipulate others, especially you," Jungkook explained. Yin remained silent, listening intently. "I can promise you one thing. I won't let Nara or anyone else interfere in our relationship, if you accept me," Jungkook continued. "Because this relationship is between you and me, no one else." Yin looked into his eyes. There was no hesitation, only sincerity and determination. She took a deep breath before giving him a small smile. "In that case, I accept you, Jungkook." For a moment, silence surrounded them, but this time, it wasn't an awkward one. Jungkook finally gave a small smile, something rare for him, before he reached out, taking Yin's hand in his and gripping it tightly. "From now on, we're together, okay?" Jungkook said with a gentle smile and a soft voice. Yin nodded, feeling her heart race with a happiness she couldn't quite put into words. A few seconds later, Jungkook suddenly pulled her into a tight embrace. Yin was startled, but she didn't resist. Her face pressed against his broad chest, inhaling the masculine scent of his cologne. She still couldn't believe it. The cold, distant Jungkook was finally hers. The news that Yin and Jungkook were officially dating spread quickly among their classmates. Small whispers could be heard in the hallways, the cafeteria, and even inside the classroom before the professor arrived. "Yin and Jungkook are dating? Seriously? I never saw that coming." Jungkook has always been cold toward girls, but lately, he does seem different around Yin. "I feel bad for Nara. She's the one who's always been close to him." Nara's name was often mentioned in these conversations. Everyone knew that she and Jungkook had been friends for a long time, and some even assumed they had something more. But now that Jungkook and Yin were officially together, that assumption was shattered in an instant. In the corner of the classroom, Nara sat silently, staring blankly ahead. She had already heard the news, but even so, her heart struggled to accept it. Her fingers clenched tightly on the desk, and her eyes burned slightly. "Why does it have to be Yin?" she mumbled softly. As if her body moved on its own, Nara suddenly stood up and walked out of the classroom, searching for Jungkook. She couldn't just sit still. In the quiet garden behind the campus, Jungkook stood casually with his hands tucked into his pockets. He had just finished replying to Yin's message when he heard hurried footsteps approaching. Nara? Jungkook raised an eyebrow as he saw her standing in front of him, her expression unreadable. Nara took a deep breath before finally speaking. So, it's true? Jungkook remained silent, waiting for her to continue. Nara bit her lip, then looked directly into his eyes with newfound courage. You and Yin are dating? Without hesitation, Jungkook nodded. Yeah. That short, firm answer felt like a slap to Nara's face. Her heart sank when her voice wavered, but it was still loud enough for him to hear. Not long ago, Jungkook answered calmly. Why? Nara let out a deep sigh. She bit her lip, trying to hold back the storm of emotions inside her. After years of keeping her feelings hidden, after years of always staying by Jungkook's side, she now had to hear that he had chosen someone else. Because I like you, Jungkook, Nara finally admitted, her voice trembling. Jungkook looked at her for a long moment. There was no surprise in his expression, as if he had already seen this coming. Nara, his voice was low but firm. I'm sorry, but I can't return your feelings. Nara froze, her fists clenched tightly at her sides. But why? She asked, her voice nearly breaking. Why not me? Jungkook met her gaze with unwavering certainty. Because I've never seen you as more than a friend, Nara. Nara shook her head quickly. That's not fair, Jungkook. I was always there for you. I've been close to you since high school. I know everything about you. Jungkook exhaled slowly, trying to remain patient. But feelings can't be forced. I've only ever seen you as a friend. I've never thought of you as anything more. Not then, not now. But I was always there for you, Jungkook. Are you blind to all of that? Nara's voice rose, her frustration spilling over. She couldn't accept his decision. Hearing that, Jungkook's patience thinned. His voice turned sharp. It wasn't you being there for me, Nara. It was you choosing to stick to me. Don't twist the situation. Nara flinched. Then, she let out a small laugh, but there was pain in it. So to you, I'm just a friend? Just that? Jungkook gave a nod. Yes. For a moment, silence settled between them. The evening breeze blew gently, making the moment even more painful for Nara. She looked at him, hoping to find even a sliver of hesitation in his eyes, but there was none. He didn't waver in the slightest. Finally, Nara lowered her head, trying to hide the sting of tears forming in her eyes. She smiled faintly, even as her heart shattered. Yin is lucky to have you, she whispered. Jungkook didn't respond, only watching her with quiet understanding. Without another word, Nara turned and walked away, leaving Jungkook alone in the garden. And with each step she took, her heart grew heavier. Even though Jungkook had clearly rejected Nara's feelings, the girl still tried to get his attention. No matter how much Jungkook set boundaries, Nara kept looking for ways to slip back into his life. Every day at campus, Nara always found a reason to talk to Jungkook. Sometimes she pretended to need help with an assignment. Jungkook, can you help me? I really don't understand this material, Nara said, sitting next to Jungkook in the library. Jungkook glanced at her briefly, then returned his focus to his book. Ask the professor, Nara. I'm busy too. Nara paused for a moment, surprised that Jungkook rejected her so easily. In the past, even though Jungkook wasn't the talkative type, he always made time to help her. But you used to help me, Nara said, her tone slightly insistent. Jungkook sighed softly, closing his book. Things were different back then. Now I have someone whose feelings I need to take care of, he said firmly. Nara's eyes began to burn with emotion. She knew who Jungkook was talking about. Who else but Yin? But she didn't give up. At another time, when they were hanging out with friends, Nara deliberately sat next to Jungkook. She laughed louder than usual, speaking in a more flirtatious tone, all to get his attention. But Jungkook only responded flatly. He no longer gave any response that could give her hope. Jungkook, will you go home with me later? Nara asked one evening after class. Jungkook glanced at her briefly. I have plans with Yin. Sorry. That response made Nara's heart shatter even more. Jungkook didn't just reject her directly, but he always mentioned Yin's name, as if to make sure Nara knew the boundaries. However, despite the pain in her heart, Nara still couldn't let go of her feelings. Actually, Jungkook didn't want to treat Nara like this. He remembered that, after all, Nara was his friend, and it would be better if she could understand and they could still be friends. But Jungkook realized he had to be firm. The fact that Nara dared to threaten Yin meant that a girl like Nara couldn't be tolerated even a little otherwise. She would only become bolder and more reckless in taking what she wanted. Finally, the graduation day arrived. The graduation ceremony was held with great fanfare. Everyone wore caps and gowns, shaking hands and taking photos together. Jungkook and Yin looked happy, smiling at each other as they posed for pictures with their families. It was then that Jungkook and Yin had the chance to introduce their families to one another. With their parents' blessing, they were now ready to move forward. After graduation, Yin and Jungkook became busy with their careers. However, every weekend, Jungkook always made time to be with Yin. Sometimes, they just had dinner together. Sometimes they went for walks, and occasionally, there were moments when Jungkook invited Yin to his apartment to spend some time alone. The sound of clinking cups and the aroma of coffee filled the air inside a cozy little cafe at the corner of the city. Yin had just sat in a corner, enjoying her warm cappuccino while checking her emails on her laptop. However, her peace was disrupted when someone entered the cafe and immediately headed toward the table next to hers. Yin didn't need to look to know who it was. Nara. It had been a while since they last faced each other directly. Since graduation, Yin hadn't heard much about Nara, nor had she made an effort to find out. Yet now, the girl was sitting there, with a smile that seemed to have some hidden meaning. Nara ordered a drink before finally turning to look at Yin. For a moment, they just stared at each other in silence, no words spoken. Their strained relationship made the meeting feel awkward and cold. But then, Nara broke the silence. Yin, she finally greeted. Yin lifted her gaze from the laptop, staring at Nara with a neutral expression. "What is it?" she asked casually, trying to remain calm. Nara leaned back in her chair, playing with the straw in her glass before finally speaking with a tone that seemed to suggest she genuinely cared. "How's your relationship with Jungkook now?" she asked, as if making small talk. Yin raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised by the question, but she remained calm and replied, "It's fine." Nara let out a small laugh, though it sounded mocking. "Really? Wow, you're so confident," she said with a tone full of sarcasm. Yin stared at her with no expression. She knew Nara wouldn't ask without a reason. "What do you mean?" Nara straightened her posture and looked at Yin with a condescending smile. "Don't get too happy, Yin. Do you think you've won just because Jungkook is with you now?" Yin remained calm, but in her heart, she knew this conversation was headed in an unpleasant direction. "I don't think about winning or losing, Nara. I'm just having my relationship with Jungkook as it is." Nara leaned back in her chair, giving Yin a meaningful look. "You know, Jungkook and I are neighbors. Our parents are very close. I've been to his house a lot since back then, even until now." Yin smiled slightly, not affected at all. "I know, but now Jungkook lives in his own apartment. He rarely goes back to his parents' house." Nara furrowed her brow and then smirked. "True, but you know, even though Jungkook doesn't come home often, I still visit his house. I chat with his parents, I help his mom cook. I've even had dinner there a few times." Yin remained calm, sipping her coffee before responding. "So?" Nara looked at her sharply. "Jungkook's parents know me very well. I could arrange a marriage if I wanted." Yin looked at Nara with an unreadable expression. For a moment, she didn't say anything, but after a few seconds, she just sighed softly and placed her coffee cup on the table. "If it were that easy, why haven't you done it?" she asked casually. Nara's smile faded. She hadn't expected Yin to respond so calmly. "What? If you can arrange a marriage and Jungkook's parents would immediately agree, why haven't you done it from the start? Why wait until Jungkook and I are together?" Yin asked, staring at her blankly. Nara went silent. Her hands gripped her glass tightly. Yin smiled faintly. "The answer is simple, Nara. Because Jungkook doesn't want that, and you know, no one can force him. Besides, if you've forgotten, I've also met his parents, and they bless and support our relationship. His mom still treats you kindly because you're neighbors. But what do you think would happen if she knew you were actually trying to ruin her son's happiness? Do you think she'd still be nice to you?" Nara was shocked, but tried to hide her expression. "You're too confident, Yin." "I only believe in Jungkook." Yin looked at Nara directly, with no doubt at all. "I know he loves me. I know he won't change just because you're close to his parents." Nara clenched her hands under the table, feeling angry but unable to argue. Yin smiled, then grabbed her bag and stood up. "If you think you can change Jungkook's feelings like that, you're gravely mistaken. This relationship isn't about who's known him longer or who's closer to his parents. Jungkook has chosen, and he's chosen me." Nara remained silent in her seat, while Yin gave her one last look before leaving. "Goodbye, Nara. I hope you'll soon realize the truth that Jungkook will never choose you." With light steps, Yin walked out of the cafe, leaving Nara still sitting in her chair with a defeated expression. She was really angry with Yin's words. Yin sat on the sofa in her room, staring at her phone screen with a slight sense of restlessness. It had been 2 weeks since she last saw Jungkook. Their busy work schedules made it difficult to find time to meet. Even though they still exchanged messages and had brief calls, it just didn't feel like enough. She missed having Jungkook by her side, hearing his soft voice when they spoke directly, and the warm gaze that always calmed her. Her phone suddenly vibrated on the table. Yin quickly reached for it and saw the name on the screen. It was a call from Jungkook. Her heart beat a little faster as she answered the call. Hello. Yin's voice was soft, though inside, she was eager to hear from Jungkook. On the other end, there was a brief pause before Jungkook spoke. Hey baby, are you busy? His voice sounded a little tired, but still warm as usual. Yin smiled faintly. No, I just finished dinner. How was your day? Busy as usual, Jungkook replied calmly. There's something I need to tell you. Yin furrowed her brows, feeling slightly concerned. What is it? Jungkook paused for a moment before explaining. I have to go abroad for a week with my dad. There's some business we need to take care of there. Yin was surprised, though she tried to hide her feelings. When do you leave? She asked softly. Tomorrow morning, Jungkook answered, his voice a little quieter, as if understanding that Yin would be disappointed. Yin bit her lip, holding back the urge to complain. 3 weeks. It would be 3 weeks since they last saw each other, because now Jungkook had to go abroad. Before this, they had never gone so long without seeing each other. But Yin didn't want to burden Jungkook. I understand, she said, finally trying to sound calm. This is important, right? Don't worry about me, just do your best there. Jungkook let out a soft sigh. I know you don't like it, Yin. I don't want to go either, especially when we haven't had time to meet in the last 2 weeks. Yin lowered her head, gripping her phone tightly. Yeah, I'm disappointed, but I don't want to make you feel guilty. This is your work, I understand. I'll be back soon, and once I'm back, we can spend time together, I promise. Yin smiled, even though Jungkook couldn't see it. Okay, I'll wait. Thank you, baby, Jungkook said softly. I'll always miss you. Yin closed her eyes, feeling her heart race at his words. I'll miss you too. They talked for a few more minutes before the call ended. Yin placed her phone back on the table, then leaned back on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. Days passed more slowly than usual. Yin felt like something was missing from her daily life. Usually, she and Jungkook would share stories after work or even meet, even if just for a short while. Now, without Jungkook's presence, her days felt lonely. Every time she ate alone, she would remember how Jungkook would calmly enjoy his meal when they were together, or how he would often feed her when they were at Jungkook's apartment. Whenever she walked past places they used to visit together, she would recall the little memories they had made there. At night, she often stared at her phone, waiting for a message from him. Though Jungkook still reached out to her occasionally, the time difference between them made their communication more limited. Yin never expected she would miss someone this much. Of course, Jungkook was her boyfriend, so naturally, she would miss him. But for some reason, lately, Yin's heart felt heavier. It wasn't that she didn't trust him, but Nara's words at the cafe had honestly bothered her a little. She knew that Nara lived next door to Jungkook's parents, and Yin wasn't sure about Nara's sly intentions to ruin her relationship with Jungkook. Yin could only hope that her relationship with Jungkook would remain strong and steady. Meanwhile, in 2 weeks, it will be their 3rd anniversary. Before Jungkook left, they had planned a romantic dinner to celebrate it. They had chosen a restaurant with a beautiful city view. Yin hoped Jungkook would return on time so they could still follow through with their plan, but more than that, she just wanted Jungkook to come back safely. That night, before going to bed, Yin stared at the calendar on her phone. Their anniversary was approaching. She smiled faintly and then sent a short message to Jungkook. I'm waiting for you. Don't be late coming back, okay? Not long after, there was a reply. I'll be back on time. I miss you. Yin smiled, closing her eyes with a heart that felt more at ease. Jungkook would return, and when the time came, they would be together again. The long-awaited day finally arrived. Yin had already seated herself at the restaurant that Jungkook had booked. Jungkook had just returned from abroad, but they hadn't had the chance to meet again because he ended up staying longer than planned. He had just arrived yesterday afternoon, and tonight, they were finally planning to meet again to celebrate their 3rd anniversary with a romantic dinner. Yin sat patiently waiting for Jungkook. Originally, Jungkook wanted to pick her up, but Yin declined. She knew Jungkook must be tired and busy from his trip, so she refused and came to the restaurant alone in her car. Besides, the restaurant wasn't too far from her home. Yin glanced at her watch. It was already 8 o'clock p.m. Jungkook should have arrived by now. At 8:15, Yin started gripping her phone nervously. She sent a message, "Jungkook, where are you?" But there was no reply. At 8:30, Yin tried calling, but her call wouldn't go through. By 9 o'clock, an hour had passed. A bad feeling started creeping into her heart. Jungkook had never been like this before. "Excuse me, may I have the bill?" Yin asked the waiter weakly. After paying, she quickly left the restaurant and headed to her car. Her heart was filled with worry. Why hasn't he contacted me at all? Bad thoughts started running through her head. Finally, there was only one place she could go, Jungkook's apartment. Upon arriving, Yin immediately sensed something was wrong. The door to Jungkook's apartment was slightly ajar. Her heart raced as she pushed the door open wider. "Jungkook," she called out with a trembling voice, but there was no answer. Her eyes then landed on a figure sitting on the sofa. Yin froze. There sitting was Nara, wearing Jungkook's oversized shirt, her hair messy as though she had just woken up. For a few seconds, Yin could only stand there frozen. "Why, are you here?" Her voice quivered. Nara turned toward her, offering a small smile. "Oh, Yin." Her voice sounded casual, as if there was nothing strange about the situation. Yin took a step forward, her jaw clenched. "Where is Jungkook?" Nara shrugged. "I don't know. He was still here with me earlier. I'm also waiting for him to come back." Yin clenched her fist. "Stop playing games, Nara. How come you're here, wearing his shirt?" Nara smirked. "That's none of your business, right?" Yin's heart felt like it was being pierced. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, but her emotions were already running high. She was angry and disappointed. What did it mean when Jungkook had been so busy and unavailable lately? Was he busy with Nara? Yin's heart was shattered. Was this what her uneasy feelings over the past few days were about?